Hello, and welcome to the Rough Edges podcast with Sarah I. Fox. In this podcast, I will guide you through my faith and mental health journey to dispel the stigma surrounding mental illness and to create an empowering resource for those who wish to discover more about these topics. I pray that this podcast will not only bless you, but that it will bring growth and healing to our communities. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Rough Edges. As the year of 2023 is coming to a close, I just wanted to take the opportunity to do a brief reflection episode on this past year and what you can expect in the year to come from me and, just in general of what I have planned for 2024. But before I dive right in, I just wanted to say thank you so much for your support. Like, in the midst of a year that had a lot of different twists and turns for me personally, the one thing that remained constant was your support of the podcast. And it means the world to me that you guys continuously support. And so thank you for that. So today's episode is really going to be reflective. And it's going to take the form of just a structure of 10 questions. So I will be asking New Year reflection questions, kind of just general questions. And I'm going to be going through and just reflecting on my year and what that's been like. So without further ado, here is the first question. Describe this year in 3 words. So when I think of 2023, I think of these 3 words: opportunity, resilience, and hope. Now, the reason why I think of these 3 words is because 2023 has been a huge test of just my perseverance, and also it has been a year of opportunity for me, which is something I wasn't really expecting in terms of all the things that I had to face. So when I say opportunity, it's just that I've had a lot of different moments where I've learned, I've grown, and I've also been able to utilize a lot of different skills, especially at work and the clients that I work with as a case manager. So I'm just so grateful for all the opportunities that I've been able to gain, in my professional and personal life. And yeah, that's really where the word opportunity comes from. Resilience and hope kind of come hand in hand because there have been a lot of losses for me this year. Particularly my grandfather. He passed away at the time of this recording. It was last month, November. And I wasn't really prepared for that, or I wasn't prepared for the way that I was going to be grieving about that. But I'll probably do a whole separate episode just talking about grief and just how that really entered into my world in 2023. But yeah, the resilience and the hope part of it really come from just the faithfulness of God and also the support that I receive from not only you guys, but from my community in general, friends, family, mentors who really rallied around me during this time. And that gave me the hope that I needed to move on. So yeah, those would be the 3 words that I would use. So, favorite book that I read this year. For me, the best book that I read this year was Viola Davis's autobiography called Finding Me. And man, when I say that I resonated with that book, I definitely resonated with the book because I feel like her journey as an actor and just really figuring out who she is in this world really resonated with me in terms of where I am, being in my 20s, trying to figure out career moves and also what I want for my personal life in terms of taking care of myself. So I am just really, really, really appreciative of her story. And I just love the ways that she uses the hardships that she's faced in the past to kind of propel her forward and transform her into the woman that we know her as today. But that road has never really been easy for her. And I love the balance that she does in the book of like showing her hardships and like the things that she's really like just had to endure. And it was a lot of like really graphic stuff. But I like how she really just shows a parallel between the things that she went through, but also the ways that God worked in her life and that she was able to get different opportunities and just grow and bloom into the Viola Davis that we know and love today. So, reading that book was definitely the highlight of my year. What was the best holiday memory of the year? That's an interesting question. Well, for me, Black History Month was really the best month in terms of like just growing, getting myself out there, sharing more of my story as a Black woman with a mental health condition, a Black woman with bipolar, who is also a Christian Black woman. And so just having that lens and being able to have this platform to really tell others about what that experience looks like. I got to share my experience about being a Black woman and what that means in terms of like racial trauma or the barriers that we as Black people face in terms of seeking treatment and just navigating the healing journey with those parameters. And I got to do that on the This is Bipolar podcast with my girl Shaylee. And I was just so honored by that experience to get to really go into the nitty gritty of like what it means to actually be a Black woman in America specifically, with all of the racial elements that come with that. And I'm so gracious to her for giving me that platform. I also had a guest from the renowned NAACP nominated podcast Truth Table. Her name is Christina Edmondson, and she is just such a dynamic woman. And I was honored to have her on the podcast as well this past year. And it was such an honor for her to come on and share her story, not only about being a Black woman in the academic sphere and the mental health sphere, but also talking about how it relates to the church and what mental health. The fourth question that I have here is, what is the best movie that I saw this year? Now, this one really comes down to a tie between Barbie and Godzilla Minus One. I enjoyed both of those movies. I also went at length to talk about my reflections about the Barbie movie in a previous podcast episode. You could check it out. It's called Quick Thoughts on Barbie 2023. And I really enjoyed that movie, not only for the context of today's society, but also because of like the creative outlet that the story was told. And I'm also really was not only nostalgic for me as like a person who played with Barbies growing up and like had a lot of exposure to the Barbie movies and just that type of media. Not only that, but just to see the culmination of her character and just like who she is in just the wider society in general. So I just love the new modern spin and the take on that as well. For Godzilla Minus One, my sister and I went to see it in the theaters, and honestly, I heard that it was going to be good, but my expectations were relatively, moderate. I wasn't really thinking anything of it. I was just looking to have a good time. And man, I was blown away by this film. Like, it was just amazing. Like, the cinematography was awesome, the soundtrack was incredible, and even the story really surprised me. I mean, some of the plot points are a little bit predictable, but I really love the character development in Godzilla Minus One, and I also appreciated just the way that the humanity was brought forth in the film, especially with Godzilla, because usually it's, just a terror film, like the monsters destroying the city, and there's nothing more to that. But this movie really fleshed out the characters, especially the human characters, and I really appreciated what they did with that. So I would say those two were definitely my favorite movies from this year. A few goals that I achieved was one, I definitely got more active I went to the gym more, and I'm really proud of myself for actually seeing it through. I mean, I need to get back into a more consistent rhythm, but the holidays and everything that was going on kind of threw me off. But I was so proud of myself for actually going back to the gym and really like initiating my workout routine after many years of not being in the gym and not really having that element of fitness in my life as much as I want to. So I was very excited to actually go do a workout, a full routine, and then come out feeling a little bit sore. I'm not going to lie because it's been a while, but I felt very accomplished in like facing my fears and general nervousness about returning to the gym after quite some time. Another goal that I achieved was that I made 1 year at my current job as a case manager. And I have to say that that journey has been so amazing. In some parts, other parts, it was challenging and there were like hiccups here and there, but that's life, that's every job. But I was just so thankful to God that He saw me through another year and he saw me through different obstacles that were presented to me. He allowed me to rise above like so many of the other challenges that me and my team faced over the course of like dealing with multiple cohorts for the cohort year. So that was just incredible that I was able to make it to my work anniversary and just have like the best team and the best coworkers like I could have asked for in recent years. So I'm grateful for that as well, and I'm happy that I was able to accomplish that. Speaking of relationships, another goal that I achieved this year was to invest more in my personal relationships. And this one is pretty big for me because usually I don't put that much effort into like initiating communications with like my inner circle. I usually wait for them to initiate something or plan something. And this year I put myself out there and I really became more intentional about who I wanted to spend my time with, who I invited into, the deepest parts of my life, the most vulnerable parts of my life. And I am so happy that I was able to make that investment because I did see a return on it towards the very end of this year. And the way that my community continues to rally around me is something that really just makes me feel so blessed that I have that in my life. And so, yeah, those are the goals that I completed for this year, among many others, but these are like the notable mentions. Hello again. Before you dive into the rest of today's episode, I just wanted to say thank you so much for your support and for hitting that play button. If you want to expand on that support, here are 3 ways that you can do so. 1. Leave a review. If anything in today's episode resonated with you, or you want to share how the podcast changed your life, you can do so by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or Podchaser. 2. Check out our shop. The Rough Edges shop is a faith-based, women of color owned online shop where you can get a variety of products from tote bags, journals, t-shirts, crew necks, and more. 20% of the proceeds go to a mental health organization. So check it out at roughedgespodcast.com/shop. 3. Connect on social media. Rough Edges is on a variety of social media platforms, including Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and more. If you want to connect outside of listening to the podcast episodes, you can do so on those platforms. If you have any more questions or want more information on the ways that I've just discussed, you can check out the episode description or stay to the end for more information. Now, enjoy your episode. Going into the last 5 questions, the next question is, what was your favorite TV series of 2023? And if any of you know me well, you know that BoJack Horseman takes that title. Like, I love that show so much. I went at length of my appreciation for the show in a previous podcast episode called Navigating Self-Doubt in BoJack Horseman. I suggest you guys take a listen because I analyze one of the episodes in the series, and I also talk about how the show navigates mental health topics well and how much of a masterpiece this show really is, and the way that it is able to balance heavy topics with such comedic, sometimes dark humor, but like it's just amazing to see the character development for all of the titular characters in the show, just the way that they handle a variety of topics through the animated medium. And yeah, I can't express how much I love the show enough. I suggest you watch the show in full and check out the previous podcast episode when you get a chance. But I just love BoJack Horseman. But there was a show this year that really surprised me, and I didn't think I was going to like it this much. But it's also on Netflix, and it's called Extraordinary Attorney Woo, which is a Korean drama all about an attorney who has autism. And I'm not going to give away anything else because you just have to watch it for yourself. But I was very intrigued by it because it also handles mental health well, and it just shows like what life is like when you're navigating a disability and how the world can perceive you and how you face different challenges, but those challenges don't have to determine who you are and what your future holds. And you can still persevere despite the odds being stacked against you. So that's another show that I suggest like you check out. Definitely check it out in the original Korean language. The English dub is never really that great. So if you don't mind reading or if you love K dramas, definitely check that out. The next question is, what are you most proud of? I am most proud of just me being able to persevere despite the odds. This year was a very trying year for me in terms of not only grieving the loss of a very close loved one, but also dealing with different medical issues, physical, psychological, and even being in a very interesting place in my spiritual life. So amidst all of these challenges and difficulties and things that life just threw at me, um I would say that I'm so grateful and so proud of myself for being consistent, for never giving up, because there were so many moments where, if I'm being really honest here, that I just wanted to hang it all up and forget about it. There were so many moments where I thought that today was going to be the day where I just wanted to just lay in bed and not do anything and just stay in bed for like as long as I could. But the thing about that is that those moments, they will come and they are very real, and we shouldn't ignore when we're feeling discouraged or very depressed or jaded. We shouldn't ignore those moments, but those things give us an opportunity to really assess where we are. And not only do that, but give us the grace that we need to be able to move forward. That's another thing that I learned through like being consistent and trying to persevere on a daily basis. I learned that you got to take it one step at a time, one moment at a time, 1 minute, 1 second, 1 millisecond, even. You got to just take it one moment at a time. And I think that's the key to persevering in any situation, no matter how discouraging it may seem. You just need to allow yourself to feel those emotions, give yourself the grace to really assess that and acknowledge it and take care of yourself, and then allow yourself to just push through in each moment. I'm appreciative of that lesson that I learned, and the fact that I was able to consistently push through towards perseverance. And again, that doesn't mean that I ignored it for the sake of like, oh yeah, I have to move on. I was just so grateful that in the midst of all of my struggles, I was able to continually take it one day at a time and not try to jump 10 steps ahead just because I was feeling like I was in despair. So the next question is, what are you most grateful for in this past year? I am grateful for two things. One, I'm grateful for my community. I cannot tell you how many times my community has come through for me. Oh man, I'm trying not to get too emotional here at this point, but there were just so many moments where people would just reach out to me, rally around me, and not because I was going through things, but even just on a regular day when there was nothing really going on. One of my friends would just text me and be like, "Hey, I was thinking about you today. Just want to make sure you're doing okay." And then we would have, a phone conversation, just have a great time of connection. And even outside of my friends and mentors and, the really physical community, I had you guys. I had my online community who would show me unrelenting support. Like, you guys would comment on my posts, you would like them, you would share them, you would tell me about the episodes, your feedback on them, what you wanted to see. And that really shows me that this is making an impact and that you guys really do love to hear from me. And I am definitely going to give you more of that, in the next year. But I can't express enough how much you guys mean to me. And I am so grateful to have you guys in my life. I just hope and pray that you guys are just as encouraged by these episodes and by these messages. And I just hope and pray that you guys find some comfort, find some clarity through these episodes, and that, we continue to stay connected. The second thing that I'm most proud of is the growth that I've had in my relationship with God, because as of recently, I haven't been as close to God as I want to be, because there were just so many things that were happening. And I was just saying, God, how could you allow all of these things to happen? And I was just really angry at him for a period of time. But the one thing that I am very grateful for in terms of my relationship with God is the fact that no matter how I was feeling, no matter what the situation was looking like, God was faithful through it all. And I'm just so blessed to be able to say that God has never left. And I've always felt his presence, even when it did seem like he was far away. He was giving me subtle reminders that, hey, I am in your corner, whether it be through a relationship that I have with a friend or somebody close to me, whether it be through a sermon that I heard, or whether it be through a song, whether it be through a message, or I would just be scrolling through social media or on Google and I happen to see a message about the fact that God gives strength to the weary and he is near to the brokenhearted. And those messages just kept coming to me this year, despite everything that I was going through. And I think that was really the sign of my growth in my relationship with God, and actually me coming back to getting into praying to him again and really rekindling that relationship that I have with him, and also strengthening that relationship. So I am definitely grateful for that as well. The second to last question is, what was the biggest thing that I've learned in 2023? The biggest thing that I definitely learned was that healing is definitely a process, and it's a process that cannot be rushed. There were so many moments this past year where I just wanted to just like get over a lot of things, or not think about things, or just rush through them because I just didn't want to feel them. But I'm learning day by day. And like I said earlier, it's a day by day, moment by moment process. But I am learning that healing is something that is just not linear. And I know you've probably heard this phrase like multiple times, especially on this podcast. But healing is truly not linear. Like you could have a moment of, consistent growth, and then you could have a moment of regression or a moment of stagnation. And it's not to say that there's anything wrong with you when those moments happen, but it's just to show you just the nature of life and the nature of humanity. Like, you're not going to be able to get it right every time. We need to learn how to give ourselves grace in the moments where we feel like we're not making any progress. And that was something that I had to learn this past year. And it also brings me back to something that a wonderful guest of mine, her name is Avantika, and check out that episode as well. I know I've been plugging episodes, but check out her episode called Mental Health and Culture, because she really said something that stuck with me. And she said, even if you take 5 steps forward and 2 steps back, you still took 3 steps forward. And that is something that I really, really resonate with, because sometimes it may feel like we're just going backwards, but in the end, you're not the same person that you were a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, So just trust the process and allow yourself to be in those moments, whether they be moments of progress or just moments of waiting to see what is going to happen next. Like, those are valid moments to be in, and you just got to take it one day at a time. Last but not least, what is your word for next year? If I had to give a title to 2024, I would say that word would be elevation. I really feel that 2024 is going to be a year of elevation, not only elevating my professional life, my personal life, my mental health journey, but just elevating my perspective on life, just seeing where I'm going to head next, where God is going to take me next, and just really learning how to shift my perspective so that I can be able to reach that level of elevation that I need in order to be able to move forward and achieve more and more in my life. And so when I think of the next year, I definitely think of elevating, going to higher heights, and I really think that the best is yet to come. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, and I just pray that your next year will definitely be one of the best years that you've ever had. I pray that it will be better than you could have ever imagined. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Rough Edges podcast with Sarah I. Fox. If you want more updates on the podcast, you can follow on Instagram at rough.edges.podcast, or you can visit the official podcast website at roughedgespodcast.com. Thanks again for listening, and have a wonderful day.